Grandmama used to pray, oh Lord, please save them from the evil snares and all the dangers that entangle. Yea, though they walking through the valley of the shadows, just prepare and make them fit for every battle. Because I know they bound to come, and I know they bound to fall, but in your bounty, Lord, preserve their beautiful. Right, we still surviving off of grandma's prayers, surrounded by the jungle and the lion's den. Tread light, cause these traps isn't conspicuous. They hide right in plain sight, thinking we don't see them when they linger. Look right beneath the surface, then leave a trail of corpses. Crisis, prices, your life a disposable commodity. Like living in a fantasy, conditioned to believe that the system even cares. Whether selling CDs or walking or driving or reading, look, they don't even need a reason. It's just you breathing and being black. When it's such a pretty fall, it don't seem like we falling at all, at all. It's just a GMO dream, where things are never really what they seem. Please cue the violins, tell them just to play me something pretty. Cause this gritty city got me screaming bloody murder. So they got me screaming. This gritty city got me on some. Look, get your hand up on my pocket. Distraction, so lazy they use the same tactics. Like condom with some trinkets, just don't let them get to thinking. That light bulb gets a blinking. You know niggas and ideas. Oh dear, my dear, you may not know me, but I know you very well. Foresight, they say hindsight is 2020. Well, tell me something, we gotta see that history is on repeat. And maybe it takes the beat and the melody to speak a little louder than the message in the clouds or the essence in the air. I swear, my God is just so clear that a system driven by fear can never give us nothing but more of the same things. Oh, when it's such a pretty fall, it don't seem like we falling at all. It's just a GMO dream, where things are never really what they seem. Please cue the violins, tell them just to play me something pretty. Cause this gritty city got me screaming. It's murder. Got me screaming, got me. This gritty city got me on song.
What's happening, good people? We are live and direct. This is RSTV. Black Power Media is in the building. As always, we bring you the latest, the greatest. And I was about to rhyme, but I ain't gonna go there right now. But we're here on March 27, 2026. You know, man, as always, nonsense is the order of the day, especially when you live in the UKKK, USA. And we you know, it's no different, but we want to set the record straight because there's a lot of misinformation going around on the internet as usual. We have a lot of scholars who aren't really scholars, you know, and a lot of folks with comments and, you know, hate messages and see I told yous and all them types of things. So we're gonna get to the nitty gritty. We know that a few days ago, Wednesday, March 25th, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a historic resolution, and it formally declared the transatlantic slave trade and the racialized chattel enslavement of Africans as the quote-unquote greatest crime against humanity. The resolution, spearheaded by Ghana and supported by a wide coalition of nations from the global south, passed with 123 votes in favor, 3 against, and 52 abstentions, including the UK, France, and all EU member states. Of course, those 3 nays, you can guess the first 2 culprits. We don't even have to say their names, but just in case you was hiding under a rock, the US and Israel, followed by the very racist Argentina. Today, I wanted to bring on a couple of the people champs, you know what I mean, to talk about what they talk about, what they've been talking about in regards to reparations. We have today Nkechi Taifa, who is, of course, no stranger to our movement. She is an attorney, a visionary civil and human rights attorney, author, and scholar activist who has been a principal strategist in the reparations movement for over 4 decades. She's the president and CEO of the Taifa Group and executive director of Reparations Education Project project, amongst other things, and is a founding member of the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, in COBRA. Also today, we have Dr. Vickie Casanova-Willis, who is an independent human rights expert, a member of the directorate for the International Human Rights Association of American Minorities. She serves as deputy director and senior fellow with OHBCUD, the Office of OBCU Development and International Cooperation. She is also a human rights activist, a freedom fighter, and we are honored to have both of our great sisters on the platform here today. Welcome to Black Power Media. How y'all feeling today?
Feeling tired and exhilarated over the past few days in New York. But how are you, my brother? And thank you for inviting us to Black Power Media.
Hey, man, I think it's overdue. But it's
yeah.
But like the commercial used to say, no wine is fine before it's time. So we here now, right? I'm here still rumbling. Yes. Dr. Vickie, what's good? How you feeling?
All good. It's been a historic, excellent, exhilarating, exhausting, necessary, ongoing next step toward ultimately full success and full reparations. So feeling great. Thank you so much again for the invitation for us to be here.
Absolutely. It is our honor and pleasure. I want to, and I'm glad, just starting off with you all's intro. Of course, you all are on social media, so you know there's all types of different things going on right now. There's always opposition towards reparations itself. There's always misinformation. There's always a tug of war on who should get what and why they shouldn't, and all this other, BS that don't really move the crowd. I want to know today, for you all, why was the 25th important? And what does that mean to African people?
I will say that the 25th was important for a number of different reasons. For the past quite a number of decades, March 25th has been known as the International Day of Remembrance for victims of the transatlantic trafficking in African people. But just this day, the 25th, a couple of days ago, was a profound vote in the United Nations General Assembly, led by the African Union's champion on reparations, none other than Ghanaian President John Dramani Mahama, who very boldly, put forth a declaration on the floor of the General Assembly stating that the transatlantic trafficking in human beings and racialized chattel enslavement was the gravest crime against humanity. Now, that was a bold statement. And in any other time, I would just say, you might have had the majority of the countries walking lockstep in with the United States. And we know how the United States voted. It voted against, just as when another resolution came up 25 years ago in Durban, South Africa, at the World Conference Against Racism. The United States walked out. Israel walked out when it was stated that the trafficking in African people was a crime against humanity. Well, this time, the declaration was the gravest crime. And the United States voted no, Israel voted no, Argentina voted no. 3 states, 123 states voted in favor, and there were 52 extensions. I'm just going to say one more thing, and then I want to call it over to my expert, Dr. Vickie Casanova-Willis. But those 52 nations that abstained, in any other time, they probably would have voted with the United States. So it was extraordinary. Though they did not vote yes, they did not vote no. The United States was almost standing alone in that no vote. And that is astounding. I'm going to turn it over to my sister.
Thank you for that, indeed.
Thank you so much for that. And also for all the work that you have done for quite some time, behind the scenes and in front of the camera and in the courts and researching to help ensure that this could even come to pass. Obviously this wasn't experience. Are you able to hear me at all?
Yes, we hear you. You
Hopefully.
lagging lightly, but we hear
It's
you.
breaking up for me. I hear you
Are you able
breaking
to hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear
Oh,
you. You're
It's
okay.
lagging.
breaking up for me, but go on, Vickie.
Mhm.
All right. There's so much preparation that goes into, okay, maybe getting blocked. It
Yeah.
happens.
So if you want, you can log out and log back in. Sometime that works. So just try that, and we'll.
So,
We'll
Brother
get you.
Okay.
Kalangi, can you hear me?
I hear you well. I
So
hear you
I
well.
just want to say that the United States vote against this historic resolution is morally indefensible, and it historically revealing vote was a stark reminder that resistance to reparations is not about lack of evidence. The resolution itself was steeped in evidence, okay? But what it is a lack of political will, okay? While the whole world, as we demonstrated by that vote, while the global community, and particularly the global South, advanced toward truth and accountability, the United States remained entrenched in denial. So I just want to say that this moment in history that we're in right now, it only deepens the clarity of our demand that repair is owed and that justice cannot and must not be postponed indefinitely. Yeah.
So to play crackers advocate real quick, right? So you you know you mentioned the whole the number of countries that abstained. I believe it was 52 countries.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking about our brother, our ancestor, Kwame Ture, right? And one of the things that he talked about, he said, if your mother is being abused, and I'm paraphrasing, and you sit back and you say you're not in it, then you're against your mother, right? So I'm looking at these 52 countries. While of course I respect your take on them not siding with the U.S., they also didn't side with African people, and so I want to know your take on that because of the fact that you know silence is sometimes deafening, and I think that for folks to sit back and see this situation and not have a voice is it's incredible at this time. So I wanted to know your take on that perspective.
Yeah, well, that was totally and completely disappointing and devastating. But again, I think it was a statement that they refused to stand with the United States. One of the main reasons for the hesitancy in terms of um, um, the, them not voting in support. What's the terminology? The bold, very correct terminology that Ghana refused to back down from. And that was the terminology of the gravest. Okay, they said, well, we shouldn't make a hierarchy of harms, they might have some legal independence, blah, 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 blah. But the resolution, when you look at it at some point in the program, I'll cite some of it, really laid out in absolute terms. Okay, the evidence that show it was not just an isolated incident, okay, that had no impact on anybody else or impact on other countries or impact in terms of this the world order. But it showed how the transatlantic trafficking in African people, we don't say trade, and hopefully we got them not to say trade because trade sanitizes the harm. It was not trade, it was war. Okay, so we say the
Right.
transatlantic trafficking, and we don't say slave, we say enslaved. So
Sure.
I see our dear sister Dr. Vickie is back, so I'm gonna
Cool.
kind of be silent for a while and let her speak.
Well, you're doing a great job, and we'll see. Is my sound working now?
You're great. You're
Can you
great.
hear me at all?
Yep.
Okay. We have curious situations often when people are organizing, and certainly via media, when things get blocked. I mean, and that's just a reality. We know that COINTELPRO is a real thing. We can read the studies not from people in the community who, are thinking that this is happening, but literally the church committee report from our own government states that this was the case, and the tactics continue. So if at any point you can't hear me, just bring me back another time, because you all are holding it down. I want to echo, what Sis Nkechi has said, but again, for people to understand the significance, sometimes they say, well, why do you all go to the UN? It's just words, that's paper. Nobody's ever going to do X, Y, Z. And the reality is that's not accurate. Words matter. So the ultimate task that was accomplished really extends and carries forward what was started 25 years ago this year. The Durban Declaration and Plan of Action, through so much advocacy for years, actually, and then ultimately over 400 folks from primarily the US, but diasporans, African nationals, came 400 strong. The Durban 400 is, is known to people, and came away with a very historic, at that time, resolution acknowledging the crime against humanity, right? A crime against humanity. They were not able at that time to get enough votes from allies even on the reparations piece, because everybody's culpable. And some of the hesitation before was because that even means anybody that may have been complicit from on the continent, would have some responsibility. And they were getting terribly pressured, as you can imagine. The embassies and other folks, we see that happening consistently. So, when the US said that they walked out, they signed out of several things even this year, right? Just within the last couple of months, they weren't going to participate in anything UN related. And yet they're participating, they're pushing back and so forth. And it's because the debt, the responsibility, and not just financial, but the structural racism, the systemic chattelization, and the ongoing nature, that language is they said world shaking, and it's true. It for the first time, this declaration, which so many work so hard to do, and again echoing the sincere appreciation to President John Dramani Mahama and his role as lead for the African Union, for those states that voted as a bloc and held strong. That's what we saw with the 52. The EU bloc said, no, we're not going to support this. But again, even though an abstain is not, it's not okay, it gives room and leverage to work with them to bring them off the fence to the right side of justice.
Okay, I appreciate.
So I'll turn it back over to you for now. I hope.
No, you did. You did. Yeah, we heard you. It was definitely appreciated. I want to, Nkechi, I've been hearing folks say things like, they didn't appreciate Ghana being the spokespersons for, folks in the U.S., so on and so forth. You mentioned the language being, for some of these Europeans, of course, it's always harsh language when it comes to our brutal realities. You know what I'm saying? We always have to tiptoe and make them feel comfortable. If they torture us, we have to come up with a term that doesn't hurt their feelings. If they brutalize us, or they kidnap or sexually assault our mothers and our ancestors, and we can't say certain terms or whatever because it's offensive to them on how we describe how they offended us, right? What do you say to folks who say that, Ghana didn't have a right to speak for the diaspora? What do you say about that?
So I need to clear something up. Okay, Ghana was not just speaking for Ghana itself. The Ghanaian president had been voted in, or whatever it is, as the African Union's champion for reparations. So this was a year long or 2 year long or whatever. So it was in his capacity as this is the title, the African Union's champion on reparations, that he did this profound declaration. And it wasn't just Ghana. He did his homework. He went around and was able to secure the unanimous acceptance of the African Union. This is in the months before this vote. He went around to the Caribbean, to CARICOM, and got their endorsement. He went to South America and Colombia and Brazil and got their endorsement. He went to other places, talking to them in advance, securing endorsement. So again, it was not Ghana just off on a limb saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this for everybody. Now, what the problem we have in this country, okay, the government that we live under does not represent our interests. Okay, so it would be good for those who accept the province of an independent Black nation state in the United States, that they came to the subjugated nations, indigenous nations, Black nations, and asked us. That didn't happen because our struggle, our right to self-determination has not been elevated to the extent where nations around the world, including our African nations, really recognize this. But I want to say something, because Amilcar Cabral once said, tell no lies, claim no claim no easy victory.
Claim no easy victory.
Yeah. And I say that because, you know, my history, revolutionary Pan-Africanist, Black nationalist, even when I heard about this months earlier, when I was in Ghana, sitting down with President Mahama, along a small delegation of other reparations, diasporic global activists, we were saying, well, are you sure you don't want to say a crime against humanity as opposed to the gravest, or at that time it was the greatest? And he refused to back down. And I admire that. And I slapped myself for even, thinking that we should, because again, we've been brainwashed. Okay, our minds have been colonized. And just as Brother Kalonji, as you said, we always feel like we have to tiptoe around to make our justified claims for liberation and self-determination muted. He refused to mute it. And he did that work to make sure that vote would pass. Did any of us actually know that all of those countries that said, yes, we will stand with you, President Mahama, were going to do so? We did not. But the groundwork was done. We had faith. And when I saw those numbers scrolling across the screen that rose to 123 in support and only 3 abstentions, I said, right on. Okay. And I will never again, feel like we need to mute our just claims to make other people feel comfortable. I just want to say one more thing. The Pan-African the Pan-African Lawyers Union, I want to talk about this language about the gravest. It did not just get plucked out of a hat. They emphasize that this qualification, the gravest, is descriptive. It's an articulation of truth. And it said, though, it is not a hierarchical assessment. But what it does do is recognizes the widely recognized scale, duration, and systemic enduring impact of racialized chattel enslavement, the combination of which constitutes an absolute crime. This is the Pan-African Lawyers Union, comparable to no other but itself. And I'll just say, for those who really want to read the resolution,
can I jump into?
please go on. Dr. Vickie, floor is yours.
No, I was gonna say thank you so much for our. Yes, 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 yes. But no, for those who are pushing back, understand that history. This is what we wanted for Durban, right? It was a twofold in part request and pressure and advocacy that was happening. And this piece was not able to be achieved then. So this is significant and it's consistent with the Pan-African work, with the work that the folks in the US were advocating with our African-born and African-based brothers and sisters to accomplish. So to push back and say for anyone to just misunderstand, it's just so short-sighted. So again, we need to understand again, and thank you for explaining from a law and legal standpoint that language, but if there's an opportunity as we look at the repair cannot just be financial, it's on the scope across so many different metrics. And it also includes requirements for non-repetition, right? So there has to be some proactive action now to ensure that at every level that racialized chattel slavery, racism, the system embedded structurally in everything from education, the HBCUs were created because we were not allowed to even read under threat of death, mutilation, you name it, right? And that's a huge part of my work. But the disparities across every possible area that people are living and working in, from the criminal punishment system to mass incarceration to environmental issues and racism to the medical system, all of those in the human rights framework, anytime an individual or groups are harmed, the remedy is reparation, full reparation. So that's just the level at which we have to claim our rights. It's as simple as that. And, at this point, I'm focusing on the 121 or the 120, whatever, who, again, are on the right side of history and justice, who are not trying to deny the plain truth that's right in front of everyone's faces, that surely by the numbers, by the number of centuries, by the continuing ongoing impact that's threaded throughout every aspect of life, this was and is the gravest crime against humanity. And it's harming the planet. Like when these businesses, corporations can run rampant as they are, it's not just disregarding people of African ancestry in one community or on one continent. It's literally ripping the world apart. And we all must come together. And this lens is one of which we're so proud to be a part. The work continues, the backlash, many have said, let's spend our energy on figuring out how to protect, right? Just everyday people against and our activists and those who are out front, and the AU who will, stand up courageously in that circle and say, no, we're standing strong. So that's all I wanted to say, is that I think we have a lot still to learn about the difference between civil rights, which we've been limited to in this country, and human rights. And that's what we see that we are embracing and helping co-lead today.
We want to definitely
thank you.
Remind folks. Yes, thank you. You're checking out Black Power Media. We're joined by attorney Nkechi Taifa, longtime sister who we've been working on getting on the platform since 1922. She's finally here. We also have
1922.
Hey man, 32.
I wasn't born then. My mama maybe.
Hey man, we also have Dr. Vickie Casanova-Willis, and listening to this, I must admit, I'm from George Jackson School of Thought, reparations and blood, but listening to you all make this case, I'm excited because I think that, for one, I'm grateful that we all have different responsibilities towards the same goal. You know what I mean? And I think that once we get out of each other's way and we allow the fighter to fight, the cook to cook, you know what I'm saying, and the doctor to do his work, so on and so forth, and you all to do this work of reparations, which is absolutely necessary. My whole take forever has been the first order of reparations had to be the freedom of our political prisoners. That's always been my first and foremost, and I'm sure that we unite around that. And of course, it's bigger than all of this. I want to touch on Nkechi, some of the language coming from the resolution itself, because we've been seeing across the board a lot more of what Dirty Dan from the U.S. representative of the United Nations was saying, but we haven't really gotten into the language. And I know you've been, commenting and quoting on it. And so I want to, if you don't mind, highlighting some of the important pieces of this particular resolution, because I think that for some reason our people don't read too well. You know what I mean? So we're gonna have story time with Nkechi, and we're gonna figure out, how we can get to the root of this and why it's important, because I'm sure it's still some folks out there like, on a naysayer tip, or they running with whatever TikTok, social media sound bites that folks are giving them. And so, let them have it.
So thank you, my brother, and thank you, Dr. Vickie. What I want to do is just share a couple of excerpts, and it's dealing with the gravest crime, because that seems to be the hesitancy. Well, actually, it even was my hesitancy, because I said, this ain't going to fly, but it did fly. But this was some of the reasons why of the many abstentions and, some our organizations here in this country. So let's look at this. Recognizing that the inception of racialized chattel enslavement was historically unprecedented in its legal and structural design, being the first global regime to codify human beings and their descendants as inheritable, alienable, and perpetual property, to convert human reproduction into a mechanism of capital accumulation, and to institutionalize racial hierarchy as a governing principle of international political and economic order. It also said, taking note of the inception of the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement as world breaking and world redefining, which ushered in the racist capitalist system, transforming the fates of all peoples across the world through new racialized regimes of labor and property. Next, recognizing the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans as a crime whose moral, legal, social, and economic logics continue to inform structural racism, racial inequalities, underdevelopment, marginalization, and socioeconomic disparities, which disproportionately affect Africans and peoples of African descent in all parts of the world. Acknowledging that the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans between the 15th and the late 19th centuries constituted a systematic, widespread, and institutionalized regime of violence, exploitation, dehumanization, and racial subjugation involving states, private entities, institutions, and other beneficiaries across the continents and oceans. Just a couple more, if I may, because this is important, and I know this is recorded, but we need to, I'm just saying, the evidence is there. Acknowledging also the exceptional gendered nature of the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement, in which African women and girls were systematically subjected to sexual violence, forced reproduction, domestic servitude, and gender-specific forms of exploitation, and which render them uniquely vulnerable to multiple and aggravated forms of racial, sexual, and economic domination, while also acknowledging their central role in sustaining families, cultures, resistance movements, and abolitionist struggles under conditions of extreme coercion, and acknowledging that the magnitude of victims, geographic reach, duration, commodification, state and corporate participation, and deliberate dehumanization of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans produce such enduring global consequences, including the large-scale destruction of African societies, the demographic re-engineering of continents, and the entrenchment of racialized inequalities that continue to structure international relations, thereby warranting recognition of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery as the gravest crime against humanity, recognizing that the legacies of slavery persist today in the form of structural racism, racial inequalities, etc. And in conclusion, unequivocally condemns the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans, slavery, and the transatlantic slave trade as the most inhumane and enduring injustice against humanity, declares that the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement as the gravest crime against humanity, and emphasizing that the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity by reason of the definitive break in world history, scale, duration, systematic nature, brutality, and enduring consequences that continue to structure the lives of all people through racialized regimes of labor, property, and capital. That's just a small excerpt from the resolution that was adopted overwhelmingly on the floor of the United Nations General Assembly on March 25th, 2006.
That's some heavy words, and I see why. Just hearing it reread, is bold, like you said, in this particular era, because unfortunately, I'm gonna just put it out there. So many Africans have been walking around with their tail between their legs. You know what I mean? And especially a place like Ghana. We don't get it twisted. We know that the U.S. has a serious military base over there right now, and we know they tiptoe through the tulips like it ain't nobody's business. I have a question I'm gonna raise from one of my unofficial producers, my brother Simran out of North Carolina. He quoted from the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Dan Negres. Dan Negres said, "We do not recognize the legal right to reparations for historical wrongs that were not illegal under international law at the time they occurred. The United States strongly objects to the cynical usage of historical wrongs to reallocate modern resources to people and nations who are distantly related to the historical victims." Simran talks about how he failed to mention that the first documented claim for reparations dates back as early as 1783 with Melinda Sutton in Massachusetts. The demand for land distribution in 1865, 40 acres and a mule, formalized in Special Field Orders number 15, Cali House, and the National Ex-Slave Mutual Relief Bounty and Pension Association, and the Reparations Committee for the Descendants of United States Slaves, amongst others. The issue has been raised in every period of this country's history. He speaks of modern resources, quote unquote, yet this country continues to function on wealth accumulated from the past. So one of the questions, and you somewhat answered it, do you all feel that it was necessary for this call to come outside of the United States, from outside of the United States, from a country perhaps in Africa, so on and so forth? Do you think that help to lay out the framework? Did it make it any better? Was it heard differently? Because I mean, literally, what Dan Nicholas is talking about is like he's basically saying, "F what they talking about. We don't owe you nothing." You know, slavery was legal during the time; it wasn't illegal, and this is the business. What's your response to that?
Vickie, is your Wi-Fi working? Okay, I'm not quite sure. Vickie, Dr. Vickie?
Can you hear us?
Okay, I know she's having some Wi-Fi, so let me just start talking. Please, Vickie, jump in, please, if we're able to hear you. The first thing I just want to say is that in response to the U.S. and EU and all like that, we're not relying on the Europeans' concept of history or what was legal or when it was legal or et cetera, et cetera. What this declaration really does, and I didn't go into that part, but it goes back far beyond those nations and countries even existed to primary African law, African constitutional law, before the continent was divided up, long before those times, okay, which recognized us as humans and rights and the like, et cetera, et cetera. One thing I would say to the brother, with respect to why Ghana, why didn't we just bring it before the United Nations? One of the problems is that we are living in a settler colonial country, okay? We don't have our own self-determination, okay? I consider Black folk in this country a subjugated, Black nation here, with no respectability across the globe, because people view us as U.S. citizens, even those of us who choose not to accept that offer of citizenship by the United States in 1868 with the 14th Amendment. Even those who have been striving all this time to strive to make a multiracial democracy real, it's never been real for us. So we can't just by ourselves. Callie House's organization, the National Black, the one that he mentioned that had over 600,000 dues paying members back then in the late 1800s, or Ex-Slave Mutual Bounty and Pension Association. Thank you very much. We can't go before the United Nations as organizations, okay, or even as local commissions or task forces. This is government to government, state by state, which is why I could not be in the room when the vote was being happened, because that was state to state. So it was incumbent upon a nation, a state. When I say state, we're talking about a country, okay, who has status to be able to go before that entity to do so. These are the things that Malcolm X was talking about, Imari Abubakar was talking about, and the like, in trying to find allies, okay, across the world who can stand up and help to speak for us. I remember Imari Abubakar, the Republican of Africa, sending letters to Ahmed Salim in the late 70s, who at that time was something peer of the UN, but he was from Tanzania. Okay, trying to get him, Brother Kalonji, to put before the United Nations our demand for the release of our political prisoners and prisoners of war. All of these types of issues, because unfortunately we didn't have the status to be able to do so ourselves. So that's why we feel, some of us, that it's part of a legitimate, comprehensive reparations demand, that there must be, first, number one, the right to repatriation, to go back to Africa, not to jump in the ocean and swim naked, but with reparations, the right to go somewhere else. We were cruelly separated, but folk were in Jamaica and Haiti, Brazil, everywhere. The right to accept that offer of U.S. citizenship and strive to make a multiracial democracy real, and the right to establish an independent Black nation right here on this soil, negotiate with the native peoples, and have all of the rights that other countries in the world have. And I think my sister Vickie is back. Let me hear your voice so we can see if we can hear you now, and so that I can turn it over to you, Dr. Vickie.
Just battling, really. been doing Zooms and everything else. So that's how I know when these conversations are on point. But I could hear everything that you're saying very clearly. And, one of the things that I know, we've done so much work in the international human rights arena to be able to be a part of this conversation, because there's from way back, like from the beginning, who were saying, no, it doesn't have to be written else's law. That was one of the arguments. And do just signal me if at any point you're not able to hear me, and I'll just pause. I don't want to waste the listening audience's time. But one of the pushback points even that the U.S. made was that this is a niche group or what have you, without even, well, I won't say not understanding, just not being willing to face reality. I think in some of your writings on Substack Viewpoints, Reparation Education Project does great work. And, Sis Nkechi said, this is just denied. Look at what are the excuses that are being made. And one excuse was, not the law at the time that it was perpetuated. And, it was absolutely against the law and then for enforced breeding. So many things which we've heard so much testimony, even in a tribunal that was held here in 2021, that found that genocide through the results, the impacts of chattel slavery, and the ongoing practices and policies that are rooted in that system. So that is also the significance, as we're saying, of this very specific intentional language that has been put in place. And it's not to demand for us or define for us what then will reparation be, right? It's not just a check. It's not that 40-acre stand from generally accepted principles of what has even been, let's just say even Israel. One of the statements, and I think it was out of the BBC, and I haven't fact-checked all the stats and the numbers, but it's important to read the analysis, not just from what's in front of our face or the loudest, as you're pointing out, Brother Kalani, social media right now, but take a look at what media outlets around the world are saying. What does Nigeria Web have posted? What are other people's analyses? And this was against.
You're breaking up a little, Vickie.
Not accepting that. So as people are sitting down now in communities and church groups, in their, Divine Nine circles or wherever you organize, and you are working to ensure that your policies in your school, in your home, everywhere else, literally reflect everything that we are entitled to as full, whole human beings. Not what a constitution says, which says that, yes, and treaties are the highest law of the land, but they're totally disregarded. So one of the declaration, this resolution, and I really people to read it for you. Utilize to simply make yourself whole, your lives whole, make our community. And it's about the generations ahead of us as well. This is an ancestral, uplifted at the very first stop, which was at the African burial ground, and paying homage to, again, our common ancestors whose bones were discovered, as the building was being excavated for yet another building in
Sister
downtown
Vickie, you're lagging a lot.
Manhattan.
We're gonna have to try to get her internet in order a little bit. It's kind of lagging. I'm sure it's not her. It's just the Wi-Fi. While we get that correct,
the Wi-Fi or the FBI.
Yeah, the FBI file, whatever the case is, all the same game. Real quick, Nkechi, I want to ask you. We mentioned civil rights versus human rights, right? And I want to know, like, how does the framing the struggle for Black liberation as a human rights issue on an international level, rather than a domestic civil rights issue, change the strategy and desired outcome? Because I think that folks get it twisted. And also, I want to ask you, because there's always this argument, and I hate to even address certain things sometime, but it's like the elephant in the room on who should get reparations. Because it's like, there's always the case. You have different organizations, different formations. I'm not going to call any names. I do believe that some of them are operative organizations. I do believe that some of them actually work for the state that they pretend to be against. And I don't feel like, I'm not going to just necessarily call any names, because, my language is a little bit different. And, like my grandson say, by the way, he cuss. So, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to go into that right now, but I want to know, like, your take on, the human rights versus civil rights issue, and how does that affect and impact, folks home and abroad, because there's always this argument about who should and who shouldn't get reparations. I want to hear from you, coming from your work within Cobra and beyond.
Okay, so thank you, my brother. I would say on the issue of civil rights and versus human rights, I'm a disciple of the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, the disciple of Hajj Malikil Shabazz, also known as Malcolm X, and the disciple of Brother President Imari Abubakar Obadeli, all of whom, and so many more, Queen Mother Audley Moore, I mean, you name the list. We were all internationalists, okay? Always talking about human rights and the importance and primacy of human rights. Malcolm X said, when you talk about civil rights, you're talking about citizens of a nation who are treated right and citizens of a nation who are treated wrong. And you're never going to win that way. You have to elevate it to the world stage, which is why in 1955, Mamie Till Mobley, the mother of Emmett Till, said, no, I don't want a closed casket. Open up the casket. Open up. I want the world to see what they did to my boy. And that was very important at that time in 1955, because just a year earlier, in 1954, was the passage of the Brown versus Board of Education decision. The reason why I submit that Supreme Court landmark decision was made was to mute, okay, what had just recently gone on the year before, I think it was 1953, when Paul Robeson, W.B. Du Bois, William Patterson, Mary Church Terrell, and 90-something others presented a petition before the United Nations charging the U.S. with genocide. Okay, and I think the Brown and Boys Board of Education said, no, we don't want y'all to take it to the international field. We don't want to air the dirty laundry that's going on here. We're going to pretend like we're going to give y'all the rights and let you sit in the schools with white children and drink out of the same water fountains and all like that. But as you see, even down through today, Brother Kalanji, we still don't have rights. We still got to fight to the rights to vote. Everything that happened in those years, the civil rights years with the legislation, they're all being chopped away. So we cannot remain on this level of civil rights. We must take our case, as our predecessors said and did. And what we were part of just several days ago to the world community, the world court, the world platform. Okay, so with respect to who should, brother, I've been dealing with this issue of reparations ever since I was a teenager. And we won't say just how many decades I am right now. I mean, I don't look it, but let me tell you, yeah, it's been 7 decades, I shouldn't say that, but it is. And back in the day, during the founding of NCOBA, National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America in 1987, before then with the December 12th movement, before then with the African People's Socialist Party and their African National Reparations Organization, the Black Panther Party, the Republic of New Africa, the Nation of Islam, we didn't have these type of arguments. I mean, not true. We weren't all in lockstep. Okay, we are one people, but we have many different views and ideas and the like. But this issue that seems to be permeating everywhere because of social media, what's not surfaced back then? We might have different ways of expressing and doing certain things, but it wasn't the type of viral animosity and hatred of our own people that we are seeing today. And I think, as you hinted, it might be U.S. governmentally orchestrated. I'm not saying everybody, okay? But it really makes you ponder and wonder. Just because I have an African name, which I don't even pronounce correctly, but Nkechi Taifa, which I plucked out of an African names book when I was 16, someone saw it on Twitter and thought I was from Nigeria and issuing death threats about me just because of my name. And I mean, how ludicrously ridiculous can you get? And even if I were directly from Nigeria, excuse me, anyway, I'm sorry, I get kind of emotional on this because it seems so very nonsensical. Okay, for one thing, it's not our fault that there's been a huge passage of time between the 13th Amendment and now. It's not our fault that they destroyed court records. They burned down the Ku Klux Klan, ran us out of the place and had us change our names. And, it is extremely difficult in this day and time to be able to trace yourself back to a specific plantation. Okay. So to limit repair solely to those who can ABC 1, 2, 3, even with the genealogy stuff or whatever, for all black people in this country to be able to do so, it's kind of ludicrous to me. And I know let me stop being on my podium right now and let you go on and continue because I know the time. And I thought I saw Vickie coming back on for a moment.
Yeah, she came back and I think she fell back off. But I know you mentioned, and I'm grateful for what it is you're saying. For folks who don't know, I know Nkechi mentioned Paul Robeson. In 1951, Paul Robeson, William Patterson, and the Civil Rights Congress launched a historical, legal, and political challenge by submitting a petition to the United Nations titled "We Charge Genocide, the Crime of Government Against the Negro People." And basically, that came as a response to, it was a 237-page document which utilized the 1948 UN Genocide Convention, which defined genocide as acts committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. And I'm listening to this, and again, certain language is only acceptable when it's made by the ruling class. Language like Holocaust. If you were to use the term Holocaust for African people, then for some reason it's blasphemy. Right. You understand what I'm saying? Certain terms can't be used by African people to describe our conditions and situations and our experience. And so I hate to go back to that, but that is like that's the the elephant in the room. In closing, because I know that folks have to run and everything, and I definitely want to get you all back on here to further discuss this. I think we probably need a weekly show on reparations here. So this is an informal invitation. So you can't say that we didn't do it. We're going to do it officially right here, right now. We need a weekly show on reparations, or if not, at least a monthly show, because of the fact that there needs to be political education to combat the nonsense that's going around in regards to African people. This whole separation of us, I think it's the most outrageous and outlandish efforts of displaced and subjugated people to have mindless arguments. My position is, indeed, there are cultural differences and there are situations, be it religious or whatever the case is, that we can and must address, but we have to have priorities met. We can't just start like, we talk about, what you call yourself. That's irrelevant compared to what they're doing to us. You know what I'm saying? Our first order of operation is to survive America, not to debate, what came first, the revolution or the egg. I mean, you know what I'm saying? This is like, and there's a lot of brilliant people that, to me, I believe a lot of times we not only make excuses, but we create situations to sidetrack the work that has to be done. We supposed to be digging ditches, and we talking about what color shovels we got. Well, that shovel was made in China. That shovel was, I don't use shovels that's not made in Africa. Like, man, you don't get up out of here with this preschool, elementary type BS. The war is on. You can sit here, in fact, you can sit and argue about who should get reparations all you want to. The question is, what steps are being made to go towards making it a reality? We can talk all we want to, but at the end of the day, what type of work is being put in? Not how many views you get, not who likes you, not how cute you are, what the groundwork look like. And as I always say, you might can out-talk me, but you damn sure can't outwork me. In closing, what needs to be done, Attorney Nkechi Taifa, excuse me. I'm jacking my words up.
So no, it's all good. I just want to say that what we're seeing today, the fruit that we are seeing today across the globe, it emanated from seeds that were planted and watered for generations. And we've talked about the names already, Malcolm and Garvey and Queen Mother Moore and Mary, the list goes on. I just want to just conclude by saying that in my mind and in my estimation, reparations is no longer a stretch of the imagination or an unobtainable goal, but very likely a reality and achievable in our lifetimes. And what just happened this week with the Ghana proposal is an example of that. Nope, that's Vickie. Oh, that's me. Okay, so I think she'd come back on for a moment, but that's what I would say. And thank you. I'm going to remind you about that invitation, at least maybe a monthly or even a quarterly,
let's get it done.
On reparations.
Listen, it is absolutely necessary, and definitely thank you to you and Dr. Vickie. I know that there's always tech difficulty when it comes to this work. You know what I'm saying? This is Black Power Media. We're accustomed to it. We know that they don't want our voice to be heard, because as the last poets would say, they like to party and bullshit and bullshit and party. Yeah. So we bring it to them raw, and then it's like, this conversation right here, it's not made to attack. It's not. We didn't come here today to. My position is someone needs to speak. So if you don't want the AU to speak, what governing body, what respected body do you have that can speak to the United Nations? And again, we don't necessarily agree with the United Nations. We can give two shits about the United Nations. But at the same time, let the record reflect historically, like the situation with Paul Robeson, William Patterson, and others, that someone was bold enough in this era, in this time period, to speak truth to power and to, talk about resistance. For any country right now, particularly in Africa, the way the continent has been under attack with AFRICOM and other situations, to be bold enough to speak for Africans at home and abroad is monumental. It's elite. Dr. Vickie, we see you. You want to close out for us?
I don't know if I'm going to be able to be heard. I just want to say thank you. It is so important to have Black media, truth tellers. We know this. So thank you, Attorney Sister Warrior Nkechi Taifa, for all that you do. To everyone that's listening, read the resolution yourself. Right? Don't let anybody get you upset over something until you also read and understand the definition of reparation. It's way beyond just money and financial. And many are a little frustrated right now, are probably doing human rights and reparations work right in your own community, on your block. And we see you. And this is just bringing together Africans all around the world, of which we are a part. Our blood, sweat, and tears and ingenuity has built the whole world, and it still keeps it running. We all have to be in this together. Work and walk forward together. So again, thank you so much. It was huge. All the information is widely available for you to just see the documents for yourself, and I urge people to do that, and let's pull together. Peace and blessings.
No doubt. Peace and blessings.
And I'll be doing a 2-hour discussion on this tomorrow, Saturday, for the organization Appeal. And if anybody wants to find out or register about that, I think the notice is on my Facebook page. If it isn't, I'll put it on there. But it's a whole 2 hours we're going to be talking about this whole issue. You were the first one, Baba Kalanji, Black Power Media, first interview I had on this. So, yeah, so let you know.
Yes, so we will send us the information. We'll put it on our sites as well. Okay. We'll make sure, we're not, Black Power Media is not we're not gatekeepers. If it's about African people, no matter what organization you're part of, as long as you make some sense, you're not encapsulated on some BS, Black Power Media is here. This is why we're here. It's not an individual platform about, any particular organization. So definitely anytime you all have anything that needs to be shared, please get it to us. And we're going to make sure that we let the people know. All right.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Vickie. Love you, sis.
No doubt. Gratitude. We'll see you all soon. This is Black Power Media. We were joined by Attorney Nkechi Taifa and Dr. Vickie Casanova-Willis. And we want to thank them for joining us here today. Make sure you continue to support Black Power Media. Black Power Media, I forgot the name. Black Power Media is an independent media outlet. And we need viewers like you to support us. Support us by checking out that ticker at the bottom of the screen. Make sure you stay on point. Till next time, RSTV, Black Power Media, we all out.
Sometimes the riot is a quiet one, where the battle is to love yourself and function in society, where voices of reason are muted by anxiety, like gaining notoriety is selling your soul. So we tend to go no deeper than the shallow water level, trying to keep us overhead in the face of all the slurs and the stares, mentally frozen, paralyzed by fear of failure and success. So we lock, stock, barrel, running while it's crumbling. All these towers and they're babbling, but the baby's in the bath and the stash under the bed, with my head spinning from the circles and the puppets and the strings that they pull. Then we move. Reactionary warfare never produces when it's on the field. Feeble and foolish, what tools and what weapons are we using? We need some new ones. Real revolution, it's real solutions. Well, we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. When my enemy really a mirror for the galaxy. New time, brand new paradigms, new contracts to sign. They thought that this would all be televised, though it's happening right before our very eyes. It's on the inside, with their guns cocked. When that rock drops, standing on the rooftop, praying that the mountaintop can live inside the valley. People tell me the reward is somewhere off in heaven. Like heaven's only in the sky, like chariots are swinging. Like God is something separate from yourself, from your wealth, from your lover, from your neighbor. Oh, your savior is coming in your own name, coming with the face the same. Real revolution, it's real solutions. What we've taken on the way.